Trump. Joining me in a couple minutes is John Lott, former Trump official in the Justice Department, head of research there. What a gun grab we got going on. This guy, Cuomo, first of all, how is he even in office, right? Don't we have, what happened to all the Me Too movement? What happened to everything that he's been accused of? What about all the people that died in nursing homes when he lied to you and then covered it up? That doesn't matter. Instead, let's go to his press conference and the Cuomo gun grab.
So here's my vision. It just came to me. Picture the border. We build a wall. We build a tall, big, a beautiful wall. And we have the wall goes for miles. And we have a little gold leaf up at the top of the wall. Little gold shiny leaf. And then we put a big name across the wall. And the name is 5 letters. You know the name? I can see it. Can you see it? Cuomo. And it's a magic wall. People can pass, but illegal guns cannot pass. It's a magic wall. That's what we need here in New York, and that's what we have needed. Maybe that vision won't work.
I mean, this guy, can you believe this guy's the governor of New York? Completely moronic. Now what he wants to do is pass legislation to take your guns away in New York. Let's put up just a screenshot here of what he's actually trying to do. That was he's trying to make fun of it, bait and switch, whatever, laughing at the wall and Trump or whatever. But he's declaring the first in the nation violence disaster emergency as part of his comprehensive strategy to build a safer New York. Basically, take your guns away. This is about a 5-point plan. Also, if we could just put that up and just quickly, he wants to deploy a public health approach to gun violence, targeting hotspots, $76 million to take your guns away, to get illegal guns off the streets. And they're going to go door to door. And the reason they can do this is because, like the vaccines, this is a public health emergency, right? So it has nothing to do, they say, with the basic rights in your Constitution. So this is probably the most blatant, naked, in-your-face gun grab ever done by any governor ever, everywhere. And it's being done by one of the worst. I don't know how this guy's staying out of jail, okay, for what he did to the people he put in those nursing homes in New York and then fudged the numbers. Joining me now, former Trump Department of Justice official, John Lott Jr., Dr. John Lott, PhD, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Dr. Lott, thanks for joining us. I mean, you look at what Cuomo was doing. He thinks he's being cute. He's violating every Second Amendment right there is. But the scary thing here, Dr. Lott, is this is a real initiative. I mean, he really wants to lead the nation as the first governor that is just going to take your guns away. How do you react to this, Dr. Lott?
I think it's going to be as counterproductive as the bill he pushed a few years ago, the so-called SAFE Act that they had there in New York. Look, one of the big things that he wants to do is change the liability rules. It's something that President Biden has talked about. He makes a big deal about claiming that supposedly gun makers and gun sellers are exempt from civil liability. And that's simply false. I mean, if you sell a gun that's defective and people get harmed by it, you're going to be civilly liable today. If you sell a gun and don't obey the proper laws in selling it, like you don't do a proper background check, and something bad happens, you're civilly liable for that. What they want to do, and what Cuomo wants to do, is to make gun makers and gun sellers liable for any harm that results from the gun. So, let me give you an analogy. Let's say we applied that to cars. So if somebody's talking to somebody else while they're driving and not paying attention, and they get into an accident, should Ford Motor be liable for all the hospital costs, for all the lost wages, for all the pain and suffering? What do you think that would do to the price of cars? There are 4.5 million people each year who are injured in car accidents that require medical attention. Well, what do you think that would do to the price of cars? Surely you drive some of the car makers out of business. And I'm sure that's the motivation and the reasoning that they have behind trying to make those same type of liability changes for guns.
Where will this go, Dr. Lott?
I think the general strategy for the Biden administration and the Cuomo administration is just to make it very costly for people to be able to go and buy guns. I mean, look at the policies that have been fleshed out more completely by the Biden administration. You know, going after rogue gun dealers. He'll go and say that 5% of gun dealers make up about 90% of guns that find their way into crimes. What he doesn't mention is that 5% of the dealers sell about 90% of the guns that are there. It's nothing magical that happens. Everybody wants to stop rogue gun dealers, but that's not what they're talking about here. When they're talking about using kind of a corporate death penalty, you know, zero tolerance for these gun makers or gun sellers, they're talking about any type of paperwork mistake. So you sell 1,000 guns over 10 years, let's say, and on one of your forms, in the blank for county, you write the name of the city a second time, or you transpose a couple numbers someplace. Innocuous mistakes have no effect on anything really, but under this new policy that Biden has, they're going to put those gun makers or gun sellers out of business. Their goal is just to make it costly and difficult for people to have guns. So, you know, you may remember under the Obama administration, they had so-called Operation Choke Point, where the federal government put pressure on financial institutions not to go and do business with companies that the Obama administration didn't like, so gun makers. Trump ended that, but Biden undid the regulations that Trump had been pushing forward to try to make it so that the federal government could not discriminate against law-abiding companies producing legal products. But, you know, try running a business if you can't handle the credit cards that your customers have, or you can't find a financial institution which will cash the checks that your customers have. There are workarounds that exist, but it makes it much more costly to go and do business. And this is just one of many, many types of actions that they're taking. Things that most people won't even notice. But what they will see is that the price of guns go up. Their ability to go and buy guns at different places is going to be much more difficult than it was beforehand.
And Dr. Lott, what about ammo? I mean, we've got another legislator in New York that wants to, I think he put a bill in to A, restrict ammo sales, B, track it so that each a piece of ammo that you have, each bullet that you have, has some kind of a number on it and a daisha that can then get tracked. What is the purpose of that?
Look, New York has been down this road before. They had ballistic tracking, so did Maryland. Those states spent literally tens of millions of dollars setting up systems that would go and allow them to track ammunition. When a gun would be sold, they would go and create a ballistic fingerprint for that gun. But despite like 15 years and spending tens of millions of dollars each year on that, not even counting the costs that they were imposing on gun makers, they couldn't point to one single crime that they've been able to solve as a result of that. So, look, unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that the main reason why they push these types of regulations is just to make it costly for people to have guns. So, you know, I'll give you another example of the type of regulations. A lot of people want to push for registration and licensing of guns. You look around the country, whether it's Chicago, Washington, D.C., Hawaii, they can't point to one crime that they've been able to solve as a result of registration and licensing of guns. And there's a simple reason for that.
So it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with stopping crime. It's all about the gun grab and getting it out of the hands of citizens so they can do what they want. Dr. John Lott, great segment as always, sir. Thank you for being with us. Katie Sullivan, coming up next.